So thank you for having me here, and thank you for inviting me. I actually started following Cabana on Twitter because I clearly love a pun, working at Ben & Jerry's, and couldn't wait to get involved. And then Vikki invited me to speak, so I was delighted. I joined Ben & Jerry's doing the PR for Europe, and then my role evolved, and I now do communications across 5 key markets in Europe for the company. It's an amazing job. I love it. I was working in a charity, doing public affairs and comms, and then I saw a job advertised asking for somebody to write on the back of an ice cream lid in 100 words why they would be Ben & Jerry's PR superstar. So I applied in 100 words. My name is Kerry. It was very easy. I just crossed out Jerry and put my name. And then one word got me the job. So sometimes less is more. Today I'm going to talk a bit, well actually I've got a content slide. You just hold your horses. So my presentation is called The Inside Scoop. I stole this from a blog recently that came off my Google alerts. So good writing is like Ben & Jerry's on a movie night. And I think Ben & Jerry's has always been synonymous with writing, with puns, with words, with really sharp phrases to either emotionally engage you to indulge in ice cream or to take a social action. And we'll be talking about that more today. We have some ingredients. And you'll notice when you work at Ben & Jerry's, you start talking like this all the time. You're like, oh God, that's a really chunky project. Big, big chunks of action to do there. And you'll probably hear me pepper that in and it'll be completely by accident and not deliberate. But I'm going to talk a bit about our story as a company, because I think at Ben & Jerry's, without our founders, without our heritage, we would write in a completely different way. And it really does embed into everybody who works there. We'll talk a bit about our tone of voice. We've got a very distinct tone of voice at Ben & Jerry's, which comes from that story. We'll talk about ice cream, obviously, because you'd be disappointed if I didn't. We'll talk about driving action. We have a very, very vocal social mission side of our business that tries to bring people into movements, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about social media. We're a very social company. We want to connect with our fans. We started off with a scoop shop business in Burlington, Vermont, so we were speaking to people every day. Cookie dough, our #1 flavour, was suggested by a fan who wrote it on a board in the shop. And now Twitter and Facebook and Instagram is our board on a shop. So we've evolved and our community is just bigger, it's global and it's social. And then we'll talk about our failures. We'll talk about our flavour flops and all the things that we do wrong, which is many, many things. Okay, so our story. Here they are, Ben and Jerry, always on that side. Never switch to the Anton deck. Never switch up. So Ben and Jerry are 2 real guys. I get lots of people asking me if they're married, which they're not, if they're still alive or not, because they eat lots of ice cream, apparently people think, if they like each other, which they do. So Ben and Jerry's met in gym class, very famously. They didn't much like gym, but they did love ice cream and they loved eating. And they decided then to set up a food business. And in the beginning, they wanted to run a bagel company. And then they researched it and realized that bagels have very expensive equipment. So they decided to then open an ice cream company. So they bought a $5 correspondence course in ice cream making. They couldn't afford one each, so they split it. And it was an online course. And then they decided to open an ice cream shop in Vermont, which is a very, very cold state in America with freezing winters. And they thought that would be a good idea. So they opened up their first ice cream shop, and then they decided that after a year of business, they would shut it to see if they'd made any money. So they put a sign on the back of the door saying closed to see if we're making any money. And then they had their first ever free cone day. So on that day, they decided to give free cones away to all of the people of Burlington who'd supported their business. And it's a tradition that goes on today. Every single year in April, we give free cone days. We give cones out to everybody across the globe, millions and millions of scoops. So it's a community business from the very beginning. But these guys were 2 hippies. They wanted to do business differently. They wanted to do marketing differently. They wanted to speak differently. They didn't want to be constrained by rules, constrained by the way you should talk to your customers, by words that are very formal, by very, very confined marketing. And so they very quickly realized that they had 2 phrases. One, if it's not fun, why do it? It's definitely something that we live by in the office today. If it's not fun, why do it? And business has a responsibility to give back to the community. So 2 things that really drive our business today, and something we ask ourselves quite often. You know when you're in a project and it feels like a bit of a slog? We're like, well, the founders said if it wasn't fun, we should probably stop this one. So when they first started, they were fun-loving hippies who wanted to do something a bit differently. And it wasn't until the 80s they decided to put this into some formal language. They call it the statement of mission. So it says that we now run our company with 3 equal parts. A product mission, which is make brilliant ice cream. An economic mission, make sure we're financially sustainable. And a social mission, so give back to the community. This was written in the 80s, and the joke is that now we're like, we should probably change that wording. Probably needs updating. But it stays really true to who we are now. And when it comes to writing words, we have to write about both the chunky, swirly ice cream and the fact that fair trade benefits farmers all across the globe, and the fact that climate justice demands action now. And we have to work about how we write about both those things in an entertaining and pleasurable way, which we'll talk more about as we go along. Here's a few key facts. We're very lucky to work for a company with a wealth of stories, and ice cream is obviously something that people naturally want to hear about and speak about. But we founded in '98, and we're famous for our What's the Doughboy Afraid Of campaign against Haagen-Dazs. So the reason I've included this here is because that placard was basically the first it was like their first viral post back before we could do it on social media. So at the time, Ben & Jerry's were trying to break America, they were trying to expand out of Vermont, and Haagen-Dazs was huge in America at the time. And Ben & Jerry's realised that some of their retailers were stopping Ben & Jerry's being put into the shops, and they were putting Haagen-Dazs first. And they were saying, you know what, we won't stock Ben & Jerry's because we want to stock Haagen-Dazs, etc., etc. So Ben could have done many, many things. He could have complained to the retailers, he could have started a very, very formal letter. There's a million things that he could have done. But both Ben & Jerry are born activists and know the power of words to drive attention. So what they did was they went to the headquarters of Haagen-Dazs at the time, and at the time they had a mascot who was the Pillsbury Doughboy. So he put on a placard, "What's the Doughboy afraid of?" Stood outside the office for the entire day. A newspaper came along, took the picture, it went viral. Ben & Jerry's were allowed to expand, and then the rest is history. So it really did show the power of that one phrase to drive action over and above any lawsuit that could have worked. They pioneered this values-led business principle, which we go on today. We've got an independent board of directors who manages everything that we do. I've got them dropping my cards. Sorry about that on the video. That does everything that we do. And we're now in 34 countries and counting across the world. So how do we make sure that we really stay a community-driven business and stay entertaining while being everywhere? So this is about our internal culture. So I wanted to show that while we were founded by 2 American hippies who have a very different life to me and who were out there campaigning from the very beginning, how do we communicate that across 34 different markets, across different people in different offices across the world? So we really do try and live Ben & Jerry's ideals now in the business. When you come to work, everybody's allowed to bring a dog to the office. This is Spock, my favourite of the dogs. You have a picket fence around your office, and then at about 10:15, everyone kind of takes their dog for a walk and then chats for a bit and comes back. There's votes on whose dog is the best dog. There's a dog walking committee. Everybody gets 3 pints of ice cream a day to take home. A day. Yeah, I know. I'm really popular in summer, and then my friends just dip off. You get an AKA when you join. So our big boss, who's just got a huge job, he's called the Chunky Chief, which he loves. You get, we have dairy pop-ins. If Sarah Topping was here, I'd love to be her. Topping, amazing. We need to change it. And it's really bred into how you join the company. You're really encouraged to think creatively, to think of nicknames all of the time. When you walk into the building, the car parking spaces have those AKAs. Nothing is usual. You have milk bottles for your lights. The carpet is grass. There's clouds on the ceiling. How you think like a Ben & Jerry's writer starts the moment you enter the building, and I think that's incredibly important. We don't speak like this in our public channels and then go into the office and write very formal kind regards emails. Every email is signed off peace, love and ice cream. Our out of offices are just ridiculous. I mean, you can imagine, hi, I'm off trying every little scoop that counts, etc., etc. Everything is a pun. And it really does help you when you're writing copy. So I wanted to do a bit about our tone of voice. And as I said, our tone of voice really starts the moment you walk into the building, and it starts when you WhatsApp each other, when you write on social to each other the entire time. But what is it? So at Ben & Jerry's, we have two reasons for our words, I guess, and I wanted to make this really clear in terms of what we use words for. So one of them is obviously to get fans excited about our flavours, but I put here as excited as we are, because in the office, we are there when our flavour guru comes in and says, we're making cookie cores, and here are 12 different cookies to try, and you get to do the taste test. It's a very inclusive company. You get to try those cookies. You don't just write about them, you try every single one to get to the one that's finally in the tub. So we want to use words to get fans excited about this new innovation. And then we also want to use the way we talk to get people to join social movements that are in line with those progressive values. We were the first country in the US ever to champion marriage equality, but to also give same-sex couples the same benefits as partners of other sexes. So right from the beginning, we made sure that we changed all of our ingredients to fair trade. We ran a caring dairy scheme. Both inside and outside our business, we're real social champions. And how do we use words to bring our fans into those movements and drive actions? We want to be authentic. I think we know that at Ben & Jerry's, we're two guys, we're two real people, and so we have to speak like real people. We want to be inclusive. Ben & Jerry's were kind of kicked out of gym class. They're the guys that didn't really have a business plan. Famously, their business plan was actually one of their friends stole a business plan from a pizza restaurant and then crossed off slices and put scoops, crossed off furnaces and put freezers, and that became the business plan for the business. So we're not the guys that get it right every time. We're not glamorous. In fact, we make lots of mistakes. So we wanted to be inclusive, and that has to come through in our writing. You won't hear us saying, we've got an exclusive party at a rooftop hotel. That wouldn't be Ben & Jerry's at all. We're irreverent, so we do take the mick. We do like to laugh around. We're youthfully optimistic. So when we're talking about climate justice, you won't hear us saying, God, the world is going to shit. It will be much more positive and upbeat and about how people can make a change. We're genuine, we're transparent, and we're adventurous. I think people would be disappointed if we brought out a flavour name and we just said, hey, here's a new flavour. It's chocolate and strawberry. I think people would be really disappointed. And as you can imagine, naming your first flavour is huge in the company. There's you get this kind of mini party at your desk, everyone gets really excited. Flavour naming is a fun time in the office. An email goes around and everyone's like, I don't mind if I get it this time, But people do. But then we're humble. We know we're the two kids from gym class. We know that we're going to have flavours that need to go to our flavour graveyard, which we have a flavour graveyard. Not everything's going to work. Failure is okay, and that really does go through the business. It helps you to be creative because Ben & Jerry got it wrong so many times that they don't mind if their employees do now. So this is the ice cream section. We all scream for ice cream. So I think I'm conscious that working for Ben & Jerry's internally, I have a very lucky job. Ice cream is naturally emotional. So people naturally hear ice cream and they smile, or they're taken back to a moment in their childhood where they had their first ever bowl of ice cream, and it starts conversations naturally about, it was chocolate chip, mint choc chip, and my brother hated it, and then he always used to steal my wafer, and you can just imagine when it goes to a natural family conversation. But we need to do more than just tell people what the product is. We still need to remind them how it will benefit their lives and why they will want it in their freezer. What is different about this bowl to any other bowl in the market? What's different from this bowl to any other bowl we've ever brought out? And then also, what will make our fans want to be a part of it? Or give it a swirl. There'll be more of that later. This is the blurb for cookie dough. I didn't write this one, but I am very lucky to be part of a team that writes the blurb on the back of the ice cream, the romance copy. But this is one that I wanted you to read just because of one word in there that makes it stand out. So chocolate chip cookie dough, vanilla ice cream with gobs of chocolate chip cookie dough. It's that word gobs that makes you want to dig your spoon in and get one of those gobs. We could say pieces, but what would pieces do to that phrase? So you can imagine that in our meetings when we're talking about this romance copy, that word would get a lot of attention. And chocolate chip cookie dough is our fan favourite. So we wanted to make sure that this remains a favourite by telling people the heritage. We knew we were onto something. We were the first people to think it wasn't a ridiculous idea to get some raw cookie dough, chuck it in a pint and serve it. And actually, the reason that Ben & Jerry's gets its chunk and swirls is because Ben doesn't have a sense of taste. So in order to make the ice cream more exciting, Jerry used to just chuck loads of textures in. And then that's how it happened. Everything was accidental. The guys would be the first to admit they had no plan. Here's another example of some ice cream writing I thought would be good. So here is our witch. So obviously it's an ice cream sandwich, which we called the witch. And when this was brought out, we had a lot of discussions about how we could talk about it. You know, it's kind of got cookie dough pieces in the middle, and cookie dough's a fan favourite, so shall we do that marketing thing where we're like cookie dough? You will like more cookie dough, sandwich between more cookie dough. Cookie dough's our number one. Buy this because you bought cookie dough. But we quickly realised that would be what we wanted to drive sales, but it wouldn't be what our fans wanted. It wouldn't be what makes them think, oh, I really, really need that. So you need to go back to what their problem is, what their emotional situation is. So we came up with this. No spoon, no problem. Even we know there's a time and a place for the whole tub and spoon thing. Sometimes you want a smaller bite, and other times you just want to dig right in. Our flavour gurus have consciously coupled, because obviously we're not cool, consciously coupled scrumptious soft-baked cookies with Ben & Jerry's flavours to offer fans an ice cream experience that can be enjoyed whenever and wherever. It's never been easier to share Ben & Jerry's with friends, family, or keep all to yourself. We won't judge. So we feel like that with this, you turn the situation in your head. You're not just talking about the cookies and the ice cream and the ordinary things. You're thinking about what our fans have been asking us for years. Why can't I have Ben & Jerry's on the go? Like I can an ice cream on a stick, or like I can a lolly. People were asking us on social media all the time for an on-the-go snack. And then this is what we came up with. The Witch, obviously Ben & Jerry's is known for its more tongue-in-cheek kind of flavour names. And when we're doing flavour suggestions internally, not all of the ones we come up with can be published everywhere. And sometimes we have to work with lawyers to make sure that the flavour names we have are funny and enjoyable, but don't break any rules, too many rules. And so this one is, we have the witch comes in mini little witches, so tiny, tiny ones. So you can imagine what we called them. Son of a witch. What else would we call them? So we know this is something you may want to keep for yourself, but we've got your back if your friend asks you for a bite. So this is really knowing that joy of wanting to keep ice cream all to yourself. And this really starts with a conversation we have with fans over social media, and actually fans that we have at parties or cafes. There's a real fandom in ice cream. And someone once told me that when they eat cookie dough, when they're a kid, they used to get the ice cream out of the freezer and say that they were going to be really helpful at dinner and they were going to serve all of their family first. And what they would do is take it out of the freezer a little bit early, shake it so all the chunks went to the bottom, serve their family all of the boring ice cream, and then have all the chunks for themselves. And it's funny how many conversations like that will then inform your writing later, because you remember that actually people want to keep it to themselves. It's that sense of, this is my ice cream, I don't really want to share. And then we just launched non-dairy, and I'm not sure if we have any vegans or lactose intolerant people in the room, but this is a big community, and vegan groups were asking us about this for years. Jerry did an interview actually with the Metro in the UK, and the journalist asked him if he were working on anything secret, and he just looked at me and winked, and I always know it's bad, and he was like, ooh, non-dairy. And it went all over the world, and then everyone was asking us every 5 minutes, whatever we posted about. So we really didn't have to say much. So all we said in the end was, it's Ben & Jerry's, but without the cow, set to arrive on spoons this September. So we wanted people to know that it wasn't a vegan version of Ben & Jerry's. It was everything fans will know and love about Ben & Jerry's. Chunks, swirls, indulgence, creativity, innovation, but without the dairy, without the cow. And that's actually been something that's really I think made a vegan community really want to get involved, because I think they're used to getting something that's a little bit less, whereas we wanted it to be all that indulgence, just one thing missing. And then if we'd said, set to arrive in your store this September, or set to arrive on freezers, it wouldn't have that emotional engagement. And people have been waiting a long time for this. They don't want it in their freezer. They want it on their spoon. Now. We heard them. And that's why this language is so important. You have to really remember when you're talking about ice cream that it is so emotional, and to tap into what people are thinking at that moment. but not to be morose and be like, had a bad day, tuck into the ice cream, to drive that fun element. And obviously when we talk about Ben & Jerry's, we're not just talking about the fun stuff of the chunks and swirls, we're also talking about the fair trade ingredients. And when you talk about fair trade, you can talk about it in kind of a boring way if you want to, or you can talk about the serious elements. But what we tend to do is talk about it more in terms of from bean to brownie. So really thinking about how those ingredients came to life and talking about taking people on a journey of their brownie. So making the brownie the hero rather than the fair trade farmer. And then although people care about that, it's the brownie that's going to be the route to get them in. And you'll find that when we talk about ice cream, we don't necessarily use normal superlatives. So we're not often talking about delicious or extraordinary. It's more spoon-bending chunks. Dig right in, satisfy your taste buds, taste tingling. And it's fun to think about the ways you can describe food that is more exciting and engaging and drives people to want to get involved. Oh, and there's one more thing on this one. So when we're talking about ice cream, there's also some parts of the job that are quite a bit more sciencey, and Ben & Jerry's isn't the best at kind of being sciencey. I remember my first ever job at Ben & Jerry's, they said, go out to our factory, which we obviously call the Creation Station. Go out to the Creation Station in Hellendoorn in the Netherlands, and we have an anaerobic digester there that we need you to talk about. And then we need you to sell that story to the media and then tell everybody about it internally because it's a really fancy machine. So I had to go out and meet these scientists because obviously we do have very, very clever people making the ice cream and doing the products. And they were very, very sciencey and talking about all this nitty-gritty. And I just said, look, tell me, like I'm a child, what this is. And they said, well, actually, it's kind of like little microorganisms. And when we have waste ice cream at the factory, we don't want to make any of that waste go to waste. So any kind of ice cream that happens to be like used in production that we can't put in the pint, we put it into this fancy machine and little microbugs eat it and it creates energy for the factory. I was like, right, it's going to be a hard sell. So I went away, thought about it, and then it went everywhere in the media, sadly, because we called it the Chunkinator. A name will get you a very long way. So that's the first part of our business, is the ice cream. So in terms of what we enjoy, it's those flavour names, it's being creative with it, it's thinking about how you can reach out to people with a flavour name. And we recently had Scroobius Pip. Do you know Scroobius Pip? He's got a podcast. He's a really nice guy. He loves Ben & Jerry's. He does a podcast called The Drunk Cast. And on it, he really talks about how much he loves ice cream. None of it's sponsored, but everyone thinks it is. He talks about when he goes to a scoop shop, the order of servings that he gets, because he's very particular about the chocolate, not touching the blah, 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 blah. And so he got in touch with us and said, we'd love to meet you, love to come to the barn. And obviously internally we were like, it's Scoopius Pip. We can make him a strawberry ice cream. It's just endless. But we do also have a part of the business that we really care about. And I used to be leading communications at a charity. So for me, the reason I joined Ben & Jerry's was because they aren't just a company that makes good ice cream and don't care if it's made in a nice way. And they are a company with a deep, deep heritage and values. I won't go into all of them now, but please do read up on it. But it is about driving action and making a change. So we've stood up for a huge number of issues over the years, marriage equality probably being the one that people know us the most for. So we renamed flavours, we renamed cookie dough, Yes I Dodo, our mint flavour engagement party, you'll see some more of that later on, but really standing up for marriage equality and working with partners like Stonewall to drive real and lasting change. And we've done a few campaigns in the UK as well, but how do we use our words and our playfulness to drive action? So here's the engagement party one that I talked about. This is a campaign in Ireland to stand up for marriage equality. First of all, we renamed a flavour engagement party and let people know through this ice cream that a very important vote was coming up. And if you think that everybody should be able to love who they love, then get involved with what we're talking about. We then partnered with a company called an NGO called Yes Equality, and we ran Yestables across the country. So it's a very serious topic, but we said, look, we're going to have a Yestable. Come along and find out more. And just by making it fun, we can be an on-ramp to a more serious issue. If we'd said, it's horrendous that people aren't allowed to do this, it's awful that people aren't allowed to do this, don't join us, subscribe. In the language of join us, join the movement, have fun, we're encouraging people emotionally to come on board. And we really feel like ice cream is the way not to make light of an issue, but as a kickstarter for conversations and a way as an on-ramp to bring people into something more serious. Another campaign that we ran, 2015, was a campaign leading up to COP21. So it's a big summit in France, in Paris, where all the world leaders were going to join together and talk about climate change. And as an ice cream company, we really thought, we're obviously contributing to climate change, as many, many businesses are, so we could be afraid to get involved, or we could say, actually, we're going to put measures on our business to be better for the environment. We're going to issue a carbon tax to ourselves. We're going to make sure that our factory is up to speed and doing better in the environment, but we could do more. We have a fan base of people who are often millennials, who want to care about the world, who want to get active, but don't know how. They don't have that on-ramp. Activism might be quite a scary word. Not everybody wants to take to the streets. But how can we use our business to drive action and get people involved in this movement? So we started with ice cream, because we're the ice cream guys, and we came up with this slogan, if it's melted, it's ruined. So the world, just like ice cream, is ruined if it's melted. And we really found that through this one line, people would get involved with our content and find out what was happening to the world around them and take action for climate justice. So we found that we got over 2 million signatures. We took those signatures to the UN and handed them in at the COP21 summit and drove real and lasting change for climate justice. But it started with that simple slogan that we brainstormed internally. So I want to talk a bit about social media. So as I said, Ben & Jerry's is a very social company. It's the kind of place where your fans are very loud, they're very vocal, they're very passionate, which we love. And we want to make sure that when we're on social, we are speaking in a real and genuine way. So we know that our fans are there because they want to have a sense of belonging. They want to talk about ice cream. They like that it's public. They want to indulge in that pleasure and share the pleasure. They want to have real responses from us, not corporate responses, not formal responses, but timely, genuine responses. And here's an example of one of them recently. Heaven is a place on earth, more specifically in this pint of Ben & Jerry's frozen dessert. And that's the kind of thing we get all the time. OMG, I've just dug into this pint and now life is worth living. And when we recently launched on dairy, we had streams and streams of exciting stuff like this. But then one of my famous ones was, if I see one more story about Ben & Jerry's non-dairy, I will hate all vegans and all lactose intolerants and all hippies. Good night. So you can't please everybody. But what we try and do on social media is speak like the way we speak in an office, speak very informally. Often we'll have fun with somebody's names. If somebody happens to have anything really that sounds like a flavour, Kerry would be a great one, Kerry berry. Anything like that, we'll have fun with them and engage with them and have a genuine conversation because we enjoy it. And we have real people doing our social media. We all swap it around our teams so that everybody has a go, because we think that actually if we don't speak to our fans daily, how do you know what they want to hear? And then this is a really ghastly slide, but I put it in here just to show about the different touch points we have with our fans. So it used to be a scoop shop in Burlington, Vermont, but now it's events and value-led sourcing and content and social and media and website and email. It's evolved massively, and we need to make sure that we're thinking about those touch points in a really consistent way. And we do a lot of testing at Ben & Jerry's. So it used to be by gut feel, let's go out with a placard, what's the doughboy afraid of? But now if we want people to join a movement, we test different pictures and creative against join now versus take action, against one Facebook banner ad to another. And we test all the time. And what I'm enjoying most in my job now is that connection between the creative element and the science, and really getting to the nitty-gritty of data. And then I wanted to talk about our failures. So there's many failures at Ben & Jerry's. We have a flavour graveyard where our dearly deserted pints go to die. We have one in Burlington, Vermont. If you ever get a chance to visit, do. It's got a huge mound of its own, real tombstones for every single flavour that's gone there. We have one in our office in Windsor, where the English flavours go to die. And each of them will have a rhyme on the front that says why it's dearly departed. And then you get on social media, people being like, bring back this flavour, bring it back. And then you can just go back with them with a rhyme, being like, we know our dearly departed flavours have gone here, but many others have gone there too. And you can read all about them on our website. So we're a company that embraces failure. But we do obviously get a lot of things wrong in copy as well. So I'm just talk you through some of them. And I've definitely made them myself when I first joined. Cow puns are the worst. As an example, we should do a Ben & Jerry's musical. It often comes up. That's a great career move. Let's dig our hooves right in. Cow puns are everywhere from every agency we ever see because it's a kind of a natural one to go to, so we do that a lot. Dairy puns, we probably milk too much. God. There's loads in the office that as we're talking through things, we're scrapping them as we go. But what I'd like to leave you with is just Ben & Jerry thought they were going to set up a bagel company and it didn't work. Then they got a pizza business plan and they made it an ice cream plan. Not everything you first think of is going to work, but if you keep that creativity open and you're open to the humour and you enjoy it, eventually you'll get to a place where you're really proud of what you're writing and you love it. So yeah, try and just don't be afraid to fail. Thank you.